On the evening of April 14, 1865, a profound tragedy unfolded in the nation's capital. President Abraham Lincoln, the architect of Union victory, was assassinated at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. This singular act of violence irrevocably altered the course of American history. The assassination marked a devastating and abrupt end to the American Civil War's immediate aftermath. Just days after the Confederacy's surrender, the nation was poised for a fragile peace, only to be plunged into an unprecedented crisis. The event sent shockwaves across the United States, transforming a moment of anticipated relief into one of profound national mourning. It occurred with a chilling precision, merely 5 days after General Robert E. Lee's surrender to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The war, which had consumed the nation for 4 long years, had finally concluded, yet its bitter legacy persisted. Lincoln, seeking a moment of respite, attended a performance of the popular comedy, Our American Cousin. The presidential box at Ford's Theater was a place of public visibility, yet also one of perceived security. Lincoln was accompanied by his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, whose own emotional fragility was well known. Their guests for the evening were Major Henry Rathbone and his fiancée, Clara Harris, members of Washington society. This seemingly innocuous outing, a brief escape from the burdens of leadership, would become the setting for one of the most infamous crimes in American history. The confluence of a nation's relief, a president's vulnerability, and an assassin's resolve created a moment of unparalleled historical significance. The events of that night would forever be etched into the national consciousness, a stark reminder of the costs of division. The perpetrator of this heinous act was John Wilkes Booth, a figure already well known to the American public. Booth was a celebrated actor, a member of a prominent theatrical family, whose fame lent a chilling theatricality to his crime. His public persona, however, masked a deeply entrenched and radicalized political ideology. Booth was an ardent Confederate sympathizer, his loyalty to the Southern cause unwavering even in defeat. He harbored a fervent belief in the righteousness of the Confederacy and viewed Lincoln as a tyrannical oppressor. This conviction fueled his escalating hatred and desire for retribution. His motivation was rooted in a profound ideological opposition to Lincoln's policies, particularly the president's advocacy for black suffrage. Booth saw this as an unforgivable betrayal of white supremacy and the Southern way of life. He believed Lincoln's vision for a reconstructed nation threatened the very foundations of his cherished ideals. Booth's animosity was not merely personal, it was part of a broader, more sinister design. He had meticulously hatched a complex plot to decapitate the Union government. The plan involved the simultaneous assassination of President Lincoln, Vice President Andrew Johnson, and Secretary of State William Seward. The intent was to throw the Union into chaos, thereby reviving the Confederate cause and avenging its defeat. However, the broader plot largely failed in its execution. While Lincoln fell victim to Booth's design, the planned assassinations of Johnson and Seward were unsuccessful, preventing the complete governmental paralysis Booth had envisioned. On that fateful night, John Wilkes Booth, intimately familiar with Ford's Theater, exploited his access and the lax security. He successfully entered Lincoln's private box, a space meant to offer the president sanctuary. His movements were calculated, his resolve unyielding. The shooting occurred during the third act of the play, Our American Cousin, a moment chosen for its comedic peak. A loud laugh from the audience was intended to mask the sound of the fatal shot. This timing underscored Booth's theatrical precision and cold calculation. Booth shot President Lincoln with a single-shot .44 caliber Derringer pistol. This small, easily concealed weapon delivered a devastating blow, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the setting. The weapon's simplicity belied the profound impact it would have on the nation. Lincoln was shot in the back of the head, the the bullet lodging behind his right eye. The wound was immediately recognized as mortal, a catastrophic injury from which recovery was virtually impossible. The president slumped forward, unconscious, his life ebbing away. After firing the shot, Booth did not hesitate. He leaped from the presidential box onto the stage below, a dramatic exit befitting his theatrical background. This act was a defiant declaration, a public performance of his heinous crime. As he landed, Booth shouted, "Sic semper tyrannis." This Latin phrase, meaning "thus always to tyrants," was the motto of Virginia and a clear statement of his perceived justification. It was a chilling echo of ancient Roman defiance, now applied to the American president. In the process of leaping, Booth broke his left leg, a painful injury that would severely impede his escape. Despite the excruciating pain, he managed to rise and make his way off the stage. This injury, though minor in comparison to his crime, would prove significant in his eventual capture. He then fled the theater, disappearing into the Washington night, initiating one of the most extensive manhunts in American history. The immediate aftermath was a scene of chaos and disbelief, as the audience slowly grasped the enormity of what had transpired. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, chaos erupted within Ford's Theater. Lincoln was attended to by audience members, including a young Army surgeon, Dr. Charles Leal, who quickly assessed the severity of the president's wound. His prognosis was grim. Recognizing that the president could not be moved far, he was carefully carried across the street. Lincoln was taken to the Peterson House, a modest boarding house directly opposite the theater. There, he was laid diagonally across a bed too short for his tall frame. Lincoln remained unconscious for several hours, his breathing labored and shallow. A procession of doctors, cabinet members, and family gathered in the small room, witnessing the slow, agonizing decline of their leader. Hope for his recovery quickly faded. Despite the tireless efforts of the attending physicians, Lincoln succumbed to his injuries the following morning. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was pronounced dead. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton famously declared, "Now he belongs to the ages." His death was a devastating blow to a nation already weary from 4 years of brutal conflict. The joy of victory was instantly extinguished, replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss and despair. The country was plunged into an unprecedented period of mourning. Lincoln was widely perceived as the only figure capable of unifying the deeply fractured country after the war. His vision of malice toward none, with charity for all, was seen as essential for healing the wounds of division. His sudden absence left a profound void in the national leadership. The assassination transformed Lincoln from a wartime leader into a martyred symbol of national unity and sacrifice. His death solidified his place in American mythology, forever linking him to the preservation of the Union and the abolition of slavery. The nation grappled with the immense task of reconstruction without its guiding hand. Following his escape from Ford's Theater, John Wilkes Booth embarked on a desperate flight. Aided by Confederate sympathizers and a network of underground contacts, he managed to evade capture for several days. His broken leg, however, made his journey arduous and painful. The manhunt for Booth became the largest in American history up to that point. Thousands of soldiers and detectives scoured the countryside, driven by a national imperative to apprehend the assassin. The pursuit was relentless, fueled by public outrage and a desire for justice. Booth and his accomplice, David Harold, were eventually cornered in a tobacco barn near Port Royal, Virginia, on April 26, 1865. The barn was surrounded by Union cavalry, bringing the 11-day chase to its dramatic conclusion. Booth refused to surrender, choosing defiance to the very end. As the barn was set ablaze to flush him out, Booth was shot and killed by Sergeant Boston Corbett, a Union soldier. Corbett claimed he fired because Booth raised his weapon, though the exact circumstances remain a subject of historical debate. Booth's death brought an end to the immediate pursuit, but not to the questions surrounding the conspiracy. His final words reportedly were, "Useless, useless." The death of the assassin closed one chapter of the tragedy, but the legal and political ramifications of the conspiracy were just beginning to unfold. The nation demanded accountability for the heinous crime. In the wake of the assassination, a swift and decisive response was initiated to apprehend all those involved in Booth's plot. Conspirators, including Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, George Atzerodt, and David Herold, were quickly apprehended. The dragnet extended far and wide, capturing anyone suspected of aiding Booth. The accused were tried by a military tribunal, a controversial decision given the civilian nature of some defendants. The nation, still reeling from war and assassination, sought swift justice, and the military court was seen as the most expedient path. The proceedings were intense, reflecting the public's demand for retribution. The tribunal found 8 individuals guilty of conspiracy. 4 of them, including Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, George Atzerodt, and David Herold, were sentenced to death. Their executions by hanging took place on July 7, 1865, a stark demonstration of the government's resolve. Mary Surratt's execution was particularly contentious, as she was the first woman executed by the United States federal government. Her role in the conspiracy, though debated by historians, was deemed sufficient for the ultimate penalty by the tribunal. The remaining conspirators received lengthy prison sentences. The trials and executions served as a powerful message against treason and political violence. They underscored the government's determination to maintain order and punish those who sought to undermine the Union, even after the war's end. The swift justice aimed to quell any further unrest. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln solidified his legacy as a man who guided the nation through its darkest hour. His martyrdom elevated him to an almost mythical status, forever linking his name with the preservation of the Union and the cause of freedom. His vision for a unified nation became a sacred trust. His death, however, ushered in the tumultuous era of Reconstruction without his nuanced leadership. Lincoln's approach to reconciliation, characterized by leniency and a focus on national healing, was replaced by a more punitive stance from Congress. The path forward became fraught with new challenges. This period was marked by intense political turmoil as the federal government grappled with the reintegration of the southern states. Racial tensions escalated dramatically as newly freed slaves sought their rights amidst fierce white resistance. The struggle to rebuild a fractured nation proved immensely difficult. The assassination remains a pivotal event in American history, a turning point that reshaped the nation's trajectory. It underscored the fragility of democratic institutions and the profound impact of individual acts of violence on the collective destiny. The shockwaves reverberated for generations. It serves as an enduring reminder of the fragility of peace, even after the cessation of hostilities. The deep-seated animosities that fueled the Civil War did not vanish with the surrender at Appomattox. Instead, they manifested in new and devastating ways. The event also highlights the enduring power of political division and the dangers of extremism. Booth's act was a desperate attempt to reverse the tide of history, born from an inability to accept defeat. His actions left an indelible scar on the American psyche. Lincoln's assassination stands as a testament to the profound costs of ideological conflict and the enduring struggle for national unity. It is a somber chapter that continues to inform our understanding of American identity and the perpetual quest for a more perfect union. Subscribe to explore more untold stories from history.